And we look, hmm, that's interesting. Waiting for Blended Planet. Excellent connection. Okay, okay. Just so you guys know, it looks to me like the connection was lame. And so technically, I have to play this again. What a shame, what a shame.
If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the Animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
And that's, of course, the very, very best quote-unquote show on YouTube. Because this is where you can look over the shoulder of a real animator creating a real show and kind of see. Well, it's like making sausage, frankly. It's kind of ugly when you look closely, but there it is. So yeah, the first thing I wanted to do today was take a quick look at the Discord, and it looked to me like Amar's been posting about mostly Blender, but this whole thing, ToonSquid, in the Useful Edu videos, I have never heard of ToonSquid, and at a quick glance, it looks like it's not like a Blender add-on or something. It's like some program of its own. So for me, that's not particularly interesting today. But in the Blender, what would you call it, room? I don't even know what Discord calls these, I guess, channels. There's some good stuff that Amar's been posting about Blender. So if you're interested, join the Discord. Sometimes there is some interesting stuff to both learn and or discuss there. All right, let's get to it. The task at hand today. By the way, if anybody is around, I'm showing 0 concurrent viewers right now, and I have been noticing about during the last week issues with my router. Not so much with Ethernet, which this computer is connected with a wire, but I've certainly noticed it in the with the wireless. It's been quite persnickety for the past week or so. I've had to reboot the router a couple times. So anyway, I on my other screen am going to the script. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I actually do write a proper screenplay for the show. And I have basically a cloud-based interface. It's basically a program I wrote that takes, what it does is it takes code like this, where you put little prefixes on lines that are in keeping with this direction here, and when you log out, it actually formats the whole bloody thing for you. Okay, so we had this Golek scene. I see what the problem is. Hang tough, guys. I need to make a correction here in the script. I'm just going to find, I guess what I want is $G. And that should take me to the Golek scene. And save that. Because there was a space between the $sign and the word Golek, the system, as it were, did not detect the new scene. So I want to take a look at this. This is all formatted correctly, but right here we have the same thing. What am I doing wrong? That's a slug line. There's something wrong here in the code. So I am not going to divert from diving right in and solving that right this instant. So I'm going to do a search. So if you are wanting to jump right in to animation fun and you find it frustrating, I would say this. If you want to go watch somebody else's YouTube channel, I totally understand. The greater lesson for me, though, is that, or that I would pass on to you, is that if you're dealing with a show like mine, if that's what you want to do, and your dream is to create your own cartoon, that's kind of what I decided to do a few years ago. It's good to know that this is a big part of your life. It isn't all just drawing, right? There are little technical things you sort of have to deal with that seem to go wrong from time to time. And I am, in all seriousness, completely baffled as to why the system isn't detecting this properly. I want to look at one other thing up here. This is like something that never, ever, 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 like ever comes up. And it's just your bad luck that you logged into the Animation Truman Show today, and the first thing that happened was something technical went wrong. I want to say that it doesn't really bother me. It used to bother me kind of a lot, but I've gotten so used to it that it's almost like this is how the universe works, right? Whenever you feel like, I can just take a breath and just be creative and just move forward, something tends to come along to make that more difficult than you might prefer. And that's just life, man. Okay, control find. I'm going to find that code, and darn it, control find. Let's do it again. Come on. Okay, when I click this, see where I'm at? This is a bug in the editor. So let me zoom in. I want to look at this. And there's your problem right there. There's some erroneous formatting baked into that one line. I just erased all formatting. Hopefully that'll solve the problem. Let's find out. Yep, there, that did it. Okay, cool. So here's the Golix scene. And then the shot that we just did. Wow, we did the kids in the morning. Yeah, we went from evening to and by the way, I better check something here. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so let's see what we've got here. This is actually the scene we just completed, so it's kind of long. All right, what do we got? Confusion reigns with soldiers entering Gripson's. Orders can be heard being barked in the background. Tobias, this is what we're going to storyboard, basically. So if you want to know like what's coming next in the show, here's all the fun stuff over here, right? This is where, it's a cartoon. But what does it actually take to make a cartoon? Well, like I said, you don't have to write a script if you don't want to. I personally do. I think it's a good discipline. It puts me in a different frame of mind when I go sit down with my laptop and just work on a script. And usually, as I'm going through the script right now, there are probably going to be 10 things that I'm going to find that I'm immediately going to want to change. Now, maybe not, but I probably will. Why? Because when I'm writing a script, what I typically do these days is I know in my mind what needs to be accomplished in the script, or particularly in the current scene, from both a plot standpoint and a character standpoint. There are certain things that I want to say with my story, right? So what I often do is I will do the first draft of the script as on the nose as it gets. In other words, I'll just write out exactly what I intend to convey, but I don't do what you might call encoding it. Okay, so what do I mean by encoding? Golly, it's really hard to think of an example, because the way real people behave in the real world is they never actually say what they mean. I mean, very rarely. Sometimes people do, obviously, but as a general rule, because of social niceties, courtesies, a sense of hierarchy, being above or below the person you're interacting with, because of those types of forces, we all modulate our communication all the time. So what that means is that what somebody actually says as a character in a story versus what they mean often bear quite little resemblance to one another. And a lot of humor actually comes out of that. So I mention that because when I do the first draft of a script, what I tend to do is I write what I actually mean. And the reason is I don't want to forget anything. I'll blitz through and I'll write down all the stuff completely on the nose. I don't even give any thought to the characters and how they speak. Like I'm pretty good at giving each character a unique voice, as it were. Although, to be honest, in Salt and Light, I think Salt and Light probably isn't the best example I've ever created, of doing that. It's something that's evolving. But anyway, that aside, when I do the first draft, I don't do that. I don't inject the character into it. I just put in exactly what I mean to communicate. And then I think about how it might be communicated in a more indirect way that sometimes introduces tension or humor or whatever into the story. I explain all that only because as I'm looking at this, I guess I do want to be zoomed in. As I'm looking at this, I don't remember. I think this is kind of halfway in between the two, basically. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. All right, so I'm going to go see what's going on. Nothing happened. There's nobody even watching today, so I don't even know why I'm talking, actually, to tell you the truth. So starting now, I think I'm just going to assume nobody really cares about this content, which is fine with me. All I care about is that people watch the show mainly. I'm not that interesting. And let's just move forward. I just have work to do, So this is truly the Animation Truman Show. Okay, so confusion reigns with soldiers entering Gripson. Okay, so basically, we're going to, let's give this some thought now. We probably could use some AI concepts to help inspire, perhaps, the look of the town of Gripson. But right now, I just feel like just noting a couple things. Like I'm kind of seeing some context here, some woodsy sort of foreground context that would suggest, probably very subtly, that that the town of Gripson is up at what it actually is. It's at the edge of the river. Obviously, we had the whole bit about the river in the last scene, and so which implies that you could be looking down upon Gripson, and you might. I'm assuming there's some this. And by the way, this is a first draft. This might wind up being really, really stupid. Okay, because what I'm doing here is the same thing I do when I write. The first draft, I'm just trying to get out of myself the ideas that I have. That's it. I'm not trying to make them good or complete or correct, and I expect to redo it at least several times. Okay, let's just say, so that's no good. I don't like that. These it needs to be like the town Mel hopped through in episode 2. It should be, the building should be shorter. And what I'm wanting to do here, so I'm trying to think now, I'm thinking about ways to economically convey sort of the scope. There's a lot of people in Gripson. I mean, there's a boatload of soldiers that are coming into the town. They're basically invading the town, which is kind of good for the town, because we're going to see here shortly that for the tavern keeper, this is cool because it means there's going to be a lot of business going down the next day or two. All right. What happens? Okay, is this on or off? Okay, we want that off. I don't normally do this. Quite interesting. I've literally never done this before, so I'm going to try it just because it's kind of cool and fun. Okay, that won't work. Interesting. Yeah, I've never done that, where I'm doing a 2D painting and then I sort of turn it in perspective just to kind of see how that works. Can't say I love it because, I mean, it's okay. Why did I say I can't say I love it? Mainly because in order to get the like if you're just drawing, you'd say, well, that perspective's not steep enough, so let's just make it more steep, right? Like that. Well, the only way you're going to achieve that in Blender is by changing the camera, basically making a shorter lens. And I say that I only just noticed that, like in real time here, because that's why I turned it to the side view and then stretched it wide, because I wanted to see what the effect would be on the perspective in the camera view, and it really, frankly, wasn't that much of a change. So. Okay. This is actually starting to make some sense. Oh, what would you have here? I don't consider myself particularly great at either background painting or composition, frankly. I tend to have to employ a lot of trial and error. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, I'll just put some characters on this sign. Let's just say that Gripson, even though it's a small village, hey, it's a village that's got a little bit of pride, and maybe they have some sort of essentially place where you tend to enter the city that is a bit of a welcome thing. Okay, so now I've committed probably the most cardinal sin of animation. You see what I did there? It's quite unforgivable. What I did was I created a ridiculous tangent. The buildings, the edge of the building and the edge of this pole like lined up perfectly, which is like, okay, Dave, you really can't do much worse than that compositionally. That's pretty bad. All right, so let's just kind of say this is going to kind of come across this way, and it is a town after all, and I really don't know what I want to do from a decoration standpoint. I probably should look up some references of some, I don't know, ancient Middle Eastern type landscapes or cities or villages or whatever. Okay, so I have a little problem here. I just drew a mountain in the background and it looks as dumb as can be because oh, hey, Tom. Yeah, old Roman city, I guess. I mean, I got to look at, I haven't done any researching, and right now I'm just allowing myself to kind of feel the process of drawing spontaneously and just seeing what emerges. And, you know, not great, not horrible. This probably needs to be more like that. I just think I made that mountain in the background a little too prominent. And then let's just say, okay, so now this is actually suggesting an interesting idea. But the idea would be to actually have a close-up on the city and then do a pull-down and a reveal that kind of morphs to this shot that would be kind of a, oh heck, let's just, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's do it this way. This is going to be kind of radical, but let's see if it works. I'm going to basically say, take this. Let me think about how I want to do this. I mean, this is probably a waste of time, because the reason being that if all this is painted reasonably sharply or whatever, you know, enough detail, then this is just a camera move. Okay, so what are you talking about, Dave? What I mean is that we'll just put it in the storyboard here that potentially the scene would actually start with this, and then over, you know, a couple seconds it would actually pull out to this. That would not be a horrible way to start the whole sequence, actually. And if we do it this way, then basically the amount of work involved is pretty low. I mean, I just have to draw the initial drawing. This can be 2D. I don't need to, honestly, I don't really need probably parallax, although that would be easy enough to do. We could put a grease pencil object for the foreground, sign, and the background probably, and then maybe another one for the far distance. It wouldn't have to be GP objects. It could be just layers, but it might be easier to move individual objects around in 3D, right? So, and by the way, in case anybody's wondering, I haven't done this in a long time, but if anybody's wondering, if you have this type of thing where you've got things happening in 3 dimensions, you can flatten it all back out again. If I go to the front view, I don't remember what it was. Is it stroke? Grease pencil? It's probably grease pencil. There is a function. I don't know. Yeah, there's a function to basically flatten it all back out again. And I don't remember what it is. You remember that, Tom? What is the... I remember how I used to do it in Blender 2.79, but it's been kind of a long time. So if you wanted to project, it would be projecting is the word I'm looking for here in the menus. So at the moment I can't find it. Yeah, something called projection. Project from view or something to that effect. I just don't remember what the... And it could be, actually, it could be that we need to be in either draw mode or view. View? No, that's switching between... Let's go to object mode and see if that helps. Nah, that wouldn't. There's no way. I don't think so. Okay, back to work. So, if we... Let's do this. I'm going to hit Control C and go back to draw mode. I'm going to get rid of that camera move. Hopefully I have enough undo here to... Come on, come on, come on, Blender. It runs out of undo, just like I've got the last thing I need to do is get rid of these 4 lines, and it runs out of undo. Yes, yes, of course it did. Stuff like that always gives me the willies. It's like you got 10,000 levels of undo, and you needed 10,001. What the hell are the odds? Okay, so anyway, the point here is delete, control V. Alright, so that's just alt. We'll actually just go back into draw mode, and these really need to be reversed. Okay, and in fact, I guess for my own purposes, it would not be the worst idea ever to make this really clear to myself so I don't forget later what I had in mind. Let's go into edit mode and actually scale this up. And there you go. So we're going from this to this. With the small caveat that we need to do a little cleanup. So we'll just delete the strokes. Delete the strokes. Delete the strokes. Okay, cool. Good. Alright, now I'm going to add one more copy of that. And this would be... We need to save this as... I got to look on Vegas here and see what... I just got done with 382... I guess we'll go to 9. I guess we'll go to 9. So we'll call this 03-90. Create a new directory? You betcha. And this will be a 03-90. Okay. So this might wind up, if I do most of it all here in Blender, it may in fact wind up being a massive scene. that sort of includes everything but the kitchen sink. So I have another project I'm working on for a client, by the way, that okay, stop everything. I'm pausing everything right now to figure out what that is. I don't know what that is. Tab. Apparently it's just a rogue mark. Okay. So now what we're going to have to do, well, yeah, I wouldn't use ChatGPT. ChatGPT, most of the large language models that are popular right now, if you ask them specific questions like exactly that, and trust me, over the last 2 weeks I've done it at least a dozen times, and what I find is there, and we won't get into a discussion of all the pros and cons of AI right now. I have some strong opinions about that. Basically, bottom line is 6 or 7 times out of 10 they're going to be patently wrong. They're just going to literally tell you completely false information, but they will assert it with great confidence as if they actually knew what they were talking about, when in fact they don't. And that's the normal case for large language AIs. There's certain things they're good at, for sure, but basically right now they're not ready for prime time, and everybody knows it. It's one of the reasons why OpenAI was so completely freaked out by DeepSeek. I mean, think about it. It isn't true, of course, but they're claiming they've spent $5 billion on developing this technology, and for an order of magnitude less investment, overnight, literally overnight, China says, oh, but by the way, we've got this large language model that performs better, and we spent 1/10 as much money. And then a couple days later, I see a guy on here stateside who his specialty is basically, at least at this point in his life as a programmer, is he's taking these large language models and kind of optimizing them, just looking for ways to get better performance and or economy in terms of, CPU cycles, memory footprint, blah, 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 blah. He claims to have done this pretty radical optimization, even of DeepSeek, and the total investment in making it happen was like $30. Now, that's probably not exactly true. It's probably an exaggeration, yada, 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 or I'm not completely understanding what it is he did. That's not the point. The point is that the whole the AI space right now is driven by hype, gross exaggeration of the capabilities, gross overconfidence about the capabilities, gross negligence of the types of algorithmic safeguards you would want to fold into the technology in order to make it both more effective and less risky, or when part of the risk being, I'm in this context, for me, risk entails not, like blowing up the world or something stupid like that. Risk entails deploying a large language model ostensibly that's so amazing it's going to help you do everything, including wipe your butt, when in fact that large language model is the way I just described when answering technical questions about legacy software, which is the majority of the time. It's not that much higher than 50%, but my sense has been, and this is anecdotal of course, but my sense has been at least half the time it will say, oh yeah, do this, step 1, step 2, step 3, and the very first step will include invoking a menu or a button that doesn't even exist in the software. Just stupid stuff like that, where it's like clear that there's no vetting this information. And guys, if you want to understand that, just all you have to do is think for a second. If the AI is trained on the internet, because that's the available big batch of data that you have to train AI on, then it's going to totally reflect the biases, the stupidities, the mistakes, and the presentation style of the internet. Duh. And therefore, it can never be any better than the very, 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 really, frankly, most pedestrian and garden variety Google search. It can never be better. It can't. because it's trained on the same data. And in point of fact, in many, many cases, it's actually worse for reasons we won't expound on too much. So to me, the whole thing's kind of funny at this point. Where I talk about it in relation to animation really has more to do with the idea that the poor newbies that waste, a month, 2 months, 3 months. Oops, now it's been a year. Oh, turns out it's 2. Oh yeah, well actually I just wasted 3 years of my life groping and searching for the tool that's going to make it easy for me to realize my vision. And I sit back and I say, my God, if you'd have spent that 3 years just fucking drawing, maybe, just maybe, you'd have actually gotten something done, instead of poking around looking for the thing that's going to make it easy. I know I'm pretty strong in my language about this topic, but I think it's important for 2 reasons. Number one, in the past, I have been that guy. I know the psychology of what I'm talking about. Number one. And number two, I feel bad for young people that fall into that trap. Because 99 times out of 100, they would make much more progress if they just freaking learned to draw. It isn't because we're extolling the virtues of traditional methods of animation as if that's actually better. In many cases, it's not. And the CGI revolution, obviously starting around 1995 or so, began to show us that. There are ways to bake really good efficiencies into the animation process that don't involve doing everything the hard way. The key is when you invest your time and your energy in things that actually move you forward, as opposed to searching for the thing that's going to make it so you don't have to learn. You become a better person, you learn to problem solve, and you actually ferret out what is and is not important or useful in the domain in which you're operating, which in this case, of course, would be 2D animation. And there is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. Many people will use AI tools to generate very interesting things very, very quickly. Those things will have 2 interesting characteristics. They will look beautiful. So I guess that's one characteristic. They'll look beautiful. Number one. Number two, they will be very short. And they will be very, what's the word? I used the term anecdotal before. It's kind of like that. They will be interesting expressions of animation that don't fit into any real context or story or anything that a normal human being would grab as being entertainment. They are a point of interest to animators who, again, are groping for the magic tool that's going to all of a sudden make their job easy. In other words, and then number 3, and this is the most important thing, when those tools emerge and all the people are showing nonsensical little examples, it's like hopping on, it's like seeing somebody who's a Blender newbie and they load a character that they downloaded for free, they don't put a surface on it, and then they render a camera fly around. And then they post it on the YouTube channel as if to say, this is something I did. Right? I mean, it's like comically ridiculous. Anybody that actually does the work in the real world just laughs at that and goes, well, they're a newbie. They don't actually have any skill at all. They have nothing. Right? Well, by definition, once the AI tools reach the point where everybody's heard of them and you're seeing all of these examples popping out everywhere, by definition, what those technologies allow those newbies to do has already achieved a marketplace value of 0. Why? Because your kindergartner could do it. Any idiot can do it. It has no value. So the person who's going to use AI well is going to be, well, actually, to tell you the truth, it'd be somebody like me who judiciously, I'm selective about the tools I'm going to use. I have no illusions about it making the process faster or better, although it may turn out in some cases it does. But I do use AI tools to generate background paintings, which I then tend to edit and change myself. But it gets me started, so it becomes a creative partner. I'm basically negotiating with the AI to bat ideas around. And I did the same thing with episode 4 of Salt and Light. So when we get into episode 4, we're dealing with a script. Well, it's a plot at this point, but we're dealing with a script that consists of a genuine interaction between me and an AI large language model, just bopping ideas around, trying to figure out what needs to happen, and so that all the important plot points and character developments are covered. And it was a fun process, you know? So it worked okay. So the problem I have in this shot at this point would be I'm thinking about the fact that I don't necessarily want to give myself tons and tons of character work to do. Basically, people milling about the town. This is actually an example where I would use AI. If I could, and I may try, go find an AI tool and say, hey, look, generate for me like a 10-second anime style, no background, no nothing. Pretend it's a bunch of people against a green screen or something, and just people milling around in the distance, and see what it generates. Because if it's useful and I can drop it into a scene like this, I would. Now the main problem I have in doing that, it would be that that there's specific costuming involved, you know, in this show. So anyway, I use it like a summary of facts that's quicker. Right. Well, Tom sums it up. Uncanny in many cases. But you the point I'm always coming from the pragmatic standpoint. The pragmatic standpoint is that if you really value your time and your expertise and your ability, and you quantify it, meaning, you know, how much was I able to do today? Because at the end of the day, that scales. If I can do 10 seconds a day, that means I can do 30 seconds in 3 days. And you can kind of spec out what you're capable of accomplishing, you know? So the pragmatic, cynical, admittedly, view is that if I wind up expending twice as much time to find or to stumble over the uncanny, it's a net loss. It's not a net gain. I personally think that that's the entire AI space is at that point right now. It's like test. I mean, I just read, you know, the Elon Musk biography that Walter Isaacson wrote, and it's really interesting because Elon's been saying literally for a decade, next year we're going to have the self-driving car. Next year. It's always next year. Always next year. And they're not getting there. They are making some progress, obviously. But oops, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, anyway. It's not like anybody probably much cares about my opinion about all of this anyway. Okay, so I don't love the perspective here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, okay, we know that the soldiers, I'm going to just break this up into two pieces and see if there's a way that they actually flow together, where I come up with a good idea sort of in spite of myself. Okay. Obviously, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. I guess it was probably Ross Payne that made the comment that if we're gonna do characters walking, which of course will come up from time to time, then it probably makes sense to have them in a side view, bouncing up and down, and the background paint just pans behind them, right? So something like that probably fits into this scene because we need to establish the presence of Tobias and Vespar, which I'm drawing Tobias right now in a very crude manner. Okay, I'm not even trying to get the characterization of these guys right at this point, not at all. I don't remember the details on Vespar's costuming, so again, we're not going to worry about it. We're just trying to get the feeling or the idea at this point. Tobias is an interesting case in that he does not actually wear the conventional uniform that the other guys do, and I actually never thought about that until just this moment. Okay, so he does have a uniform though. I mean, he's got kind of this I don't know. It's like a chest guard kind of thing. It's basically like a little bit of armor, I guess, that just kind of hangs over. And I think he has armbands. I'm not sure. I don't remember offhand. Okay, so when we get to the where are we here on the script? When we get to the, let me see what the, I want soldiers stationed. Oh, well, this would be Vespar. He'd be like, I want soldiers stationed at every throughway, sir. Okay, so a village merchant. Let's just look at this for a minute. So the rumors were true. Our princes were, okay, yeah, so these guys are joking. The guys in the tavern are kind of joking because they knew the soldiers were coming. They didn't really know that the town was going to be completely overrun, though, the way it seems to be. Prince's runaway bride still on the loose. Unbelievable. I'll make sure we're stocked up with ingredients. Yeah, it's going to be a very busy day. So we cut to outside. From a distance, the three youngsters survey the insanely busy village. So that would be this. Come back here. This could be reused quite nicely, whereby the children's heads would basically pop up here. You know, this is so. I mean, here's maybe Luca, and here's maybe Tianara, and maybe in between here's Melchizedek, right? So they're kind of sneaking. They've snuck up to Gripson. Apparently they've gotten there with their boat. Right now I don't think from a storytelling standpoint it's necessary to show them mooring the boat, okay? We know that Luca found a boat, which presumably he stole, and we know that the boat is how they got to Gripson. So do we really need to show them getting out of the boat? I don't think so. We could, though. There might be a reason why it's not the worst idea ever. I'm just kind of spitballing here and telling you what the thinking process is. So this would be the kids, which means this shot would be downstream somewhat. Keep saving your work, by the way. So this is the establishing shot, and then we cut close to these guys. And what we need to do essentially is have, you know, other. Well, let's go ahead and use. I probably could turn the preview on here, and maybe we go ahead and use this guy again. Where the heck is he? Yeah, this guy. This guy would be a good guy to use, right? So he's. You know, they're coming into the town. Everybody's buzzing around. They know they're looking for a 14-year-old girl. That's who's missing. The prince's runaway bride, as I said. And, you know, you got to get into the town, figure out practical things. Well, okay, what if we're here for 2 days? Well, where are all of our soldiers going to sleep, for example? Where are we going to get some food? Do we have supplies we brought with us? Oh, we probably do. Or was the whole operation in such a rush that we figured, you know what, we're going to be passing through Gripson. We can pick up some supplies on the way, so let's just hit the road and get to it kind of thing. These are all things that would be considerations. Now, if it was a real military campaign, this is not. This all came about very spontaneously in episode 2. And so these are things that all kind of go through my mind as I'm drawing. All of a sudden different things occur to me, you know. So the tavern keeper is kind of excited because he's assuming, and this may be an incorrect assumption, he's assuming when the soldiers come to eat in the tavern that they're not going to say, well, no, we're here on the king's business and you're going to feed us for free. He's assuming that's what's not going to happen, but that actually could be what would happen. You know? So there's all these things that sort of enter into the body of considerations. Okay, but then again, vis-a-vis Ross Payne's comment yesterday, this could actually work now that I'm looking at it. We have an establishing shot nice and close on the sign, and we'll have a subtitle that we'll have a subtitle that says Gripson or welcome to Gripson, and then we'll put this obviously in some nonsense ancient language idea. Okay? So that would work. We pull out, and the problem is we need to see those people milling about, and we need to have a sense of that it's busy. Okay, so by far that's the hardest thing to do here, and it's why I'm thinking creatively about how to avoid having to do it. honestly. If we go back to episode 2, you'll see that at the beginning of episode 2, the same situation kind of happened where Mel comes into this village and he's sneaking through the village, kind of going from building to building. And it was quite a lot of work, for sure. So at the earliest possible point in the storytelling, I jumped to a shot more like this, where you're jumping, you're close, so you can see the buildings in the background, right? This type of thing, maybe a window here. But the whole idea is that you're trying to avoid having to have, big, well, like that, right? Because if this was a person, if you had a person here, let's just think about this for a second. Okay, so that's stop everything, hit undo. We'll go ahead and make a duplicate here. Boop. Okay. So if you had a person here and they're 6 foot tall-ish, they might be roughly this big. Okay. Well, according to the rules of perspective, that means if they were standing here, they'd be more like this big, right? Top to bottom, blah, blah, blah. That head is too large. That's probably obvious, but anyway, right? So that's what you would have to do. So we're going to assume basically 2-point perspective, meaning the horizon line's flat, and we really just, it's really actually 1-point perspective, truth be known. So let's just think about this. Okay, so one thing I'm thinking about here creatively is that I could probably get a lot of mileage out of silhouettes, right? If what we do is we have this sort of there's probably a zone where we just have it's like an anthill, right? I need some activity, like you see oftentimes in anime, that feels like a crowd, but it's kind of just a bunch of squiggle lines and some motion in there. I don't think that's going to play very well as I'm thinking about it, but I'm pretty sure there's a good idea here somewhere that has to do with using silhouettes to establish the scene. Because if we pull out and basically the stuff that's important is in silhouette, let's just say there's a guy in the foreground. Let's say there's a guy in the foreground like that, and whoever's in the foreground just moves a little bit. That's all we need to do. We need to just pull out and show these people converging in the space, and then we cut to something like this as soon as we can, right? As quickly as possible. That's the idea. So this is not a fully formed idea yet, but I'm just thinking this probably gets me to where I need to be without it being like, 300 years of meticulous animation just to be able to establish the setting, Shallow depth of field, the figures can be smudges of color. Well, yes and no. I mean, the shallow depth of field, to have the foreground out of focus a little bit makes sense, and to have the background out of focus probably does not make sense, because the whole point was that we're establishing the setting of the village. I don't think we can. Maybe back here. I have to think about this. There's probably some idea I haven't even thought of. Like, for example, okay, I'm just spitballing now. Ideas are coming to me. Okay. Truth of the matter is, one of the best ideas would be, actually, I tell you the truth, in the movie, in episode 1 of Salt and Light, I had a cameo in the show of the cabbage guy from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I just added the cabbage guy into my scene. I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of interesting. Okay, what if, let's just look at this. I'm getting some ideas now. And this may not work, but we'll see. Okay, what if we take this concept here and we say, off in the distance, what we see is the cabbage cart. Now, that helps us a little bit because the cabbage cart would have, you know, it's kicking up dust, right? So who knows what he's doing? Maybe he's delivering cabbages to the tavern keeper. Okay? So now I'm just saying that this may actually, even though there's more character animation here to do, it may actually make it easier. Okay? So now he's got the hand, I don't like the sizing there at all, because I need to get the, I need to get the cart in the shot. Okay? So, draw mode. Okay, so let's just, as I always say, work from the known to the unknown. I'm just going to kind of draw what I know needs to be in there, and then we'll figure out the things that didn't work afterwards. Okay, I'm going to just, boom, push that over a little bit. Okay, so I don't remember offhand what the cabbage guy's cart looks like, but let's just say this is the cabbage guy. Okay? So he's got the handles on the cabbage cart. This is, the perspective is wrong. It looks kind of stupid, so let's try to fix that. Let's just redo it a little bit. Do we want big wheels or small wheels? I'm not sure. Okay, cabbages. And golly, it seems to me, didn't he have like a canopy over top his, I don't remember. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but anyway, so this guy, so this is how this would work from a storytelling standpoint. So he's kicking up all this dust, right? So now we've got the opportunity to do a Yo-Yo Shinari type dust effect. So that'll be fun. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Yoshinari and go watch, go watch Kill la Kill or Little Witch Academia or something like that. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay, so then what would happen is this guy, all of a sudden, by the way, I'm going to put this out here. I don't want that in the way. Okay, so now all of a sudden the cabbage guy looks up. Okay? I don't have any recollection of what the cabbage guy looks like. So it doesn't matter for our purposes. We're just trying to get an idea in here. So I'm going to give him a baseball cap. Okay. Maybe he has a beard. I just don't remember. Okay, so why does this work? Well, what this does is it says, okay, you've got this quiet village, right? Guys, the reason I'm trying to just show you how the creative process works, at least for me. Okay, so it may be different for you. And I'm always thinking economy, that's for sure. So we've got this, so think about this. We pull out, we've established the setting. We would have, of course, some clouds moving across the sky, right? And then maybe we're continuing to push. After we go to this shot, we're continuing to slowly, very slowly push in. So there's still a little bit more movement. Okay? As we're pushing in, this guy comes around the corner kicking up dust. Now, we haven't done any work at all from a character standpoint, have we? All we've had to do is show this guy, because the whole point is there's nothing going on in Gripson. And then he stops and goes, huh? And then you cut back to this wide shot and you see these silhouettes coming in, right? Just a few of them. And then we cut to the close-up here where we have this interaction between these guys, which this does make sense. This is actually a pretty good solution. So let me hit I want to hit GX. I want to go on the X axis. Just center that a bit. Okay. And we probably want to have some anonymous soldier dude here, behind him, sort of filling in the ranks, as it were. Okay. And now we've got the ability to go straight to close-ups between these guys in their interaction. And we never actually had to explicitly show umpteen quadzillion people drawn in detail milling around the city. All we had to do is show somebody reacting to the fact that something's different here. We're seeing these spiky hat dudes appear, and then we hear their conversation, and then it's going to cut to the tavern keeper looking out the window like, my God, you know, these guys are like, our town is starting to swarm with soldiers. You see how we sort of trick the audience through our storytelling kind of thing? Establishing shot, and then the next shot shallowed up the field. Okay, that was at 11:50. Okay, so I don't know if this helps you guys, but to tell you the truth, I'm actually looking at this now. Think about it. Half an hour, 40 minutes ago, I'm like, geez, what do I do? How do I do this? This is going to be a problem. I want to show the city, but, you know, it's supposed to be swarming with soldiers. And in a half an hour, just batting around ideas, this is what happens. And the thing is, this is good storytelling. This is creamy, man. This is sweet. Nice sweet pull out. All of a sudden, you're slowly pushing in still, so the camera's kind of going, you know, the camera's kind of doing this. Nice and slow. And then you see this happen. Cut close. Keep the editing going. Cut. Do it like Robert Rodriguez would do it. Keep the cuts going and tell the story with the cuts. Don't tell the story with fancy schmancy camera moves. Don't tell the story with stuff jumping around in 3D space if you can avoid it. I like that. Okay, so this, in case you're wondering about the progression here, let's just do it in reverse. So I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate that. And then this particular frame, I'm going to, this is going to be a little crazy. I don't think this is going to work very well, but yep, I guess it will. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this guy a little big, and I'm actually going to just, I'm just going to let it scale out from, I'll tell you what I should do. This is actually a really interesting idea. The vanishing point actually is there, basically, right? So why don't we edit from there? So if I go scale and move this back a little bit, okay? Same thing here. I'm just going to grab this cluster of scribbles and just do the same thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. X key. Okay, undo. Okay, I meant to hit the L key. Okay, same thing. Scale it up a bit. All right, draw mode. Okay, so this just tells us, you know, that we're seeing this type of thing happen. Okay, and the other part of it, I guess, okay, this guy right here is covered up, so I'll just redraw him here. Okay, we'll cheat. And for my purposes, I want to actually erase that so it's not confusing me later when I come back and don't remember what I did. And just to be clear, this transition is actually way too extreme. So I'm going to correct that. I'm going to grab this. Hello. I'm going to grab this. Okay, what is it? Shift. Okay, that'll work. Okay, linked. I know it's hard to see or understand, but I'm going to scale this down a little bit. Okay. I know you're thinking, geez, you're doing that with seems like this workspace could be better organized. Yes, of course it could. The idea here is to just keep it loose and get the ideas out so I don't forget them later. Cool. We've got the beginnings of a good sequence. All right, so now looking back at the script, got to keep things in order here. Okay. Yeah, okay, there we go. So we've only gotten to here. That's what we've covered so far in terms of storyboard. A village merchant looks out a tavern window. Okay, so what was this? Oh yeah, this is when later when we get to the kids poking around. Okay. So these guys will have their little conversation, and I think, okay, let's do it this way. watch this, friends. Let's do select linked. Actually, let me rethink that. Go on the X. Okay. Go on the X. Okay. So why did I do that? Okay, so they're going to have their little conversation. Let's script Vespar. Okay, so Vespar says that line. All right, so let's go ahead and put these two lines in here real quick, just to okay, so soldier, silhouette, Vespar. He's got kind of a long face. His face was loosely based on oh, I don't know, 90s era Kevin Bacon, basically. Okay, so he's barking orders. Okay, he's got a beard, a little longer face, got that little bit of trim. This comes down like that. So, does he salute? You know, he might salute. We'll put in a salute just for fun. Okay. Why did I put that in there? Because what we're wanting to do, now this is, again, guys, we're talking about editing now. We're talking about storytelling context. We're talking about the way that we're trying to lead the viewer to look at what we want them to look at and understand what we want them to understand. Meaning what exactly? Well, you notice that there's this window. See, a moment ago when I was blabbing, all of a sudden I thought, well, wait a minute, that window could all of a sudden be really, really useful. Because now we need to, we could actually have someone appear in this window right here. That's not the worst idea ever. But the point here is we break up the context by closing into these guys, and then what we're going to do is we're going to cut close to this guy who's looking out the window, and what we will see is this right here, right? Okay. Okay, I'm not gonna draw this guy correctly at this point. Of course, I always say I'm not gonna do this and I'm not gonna do that. Like I wasn't gonna talk about AI earlier, right? So I always say I'm not going to do it, and then I immediately turn around and do it. But it's just because there's this incredible smattering of ideas going on in my brain, and part of it's not wanting to forget what I'm going to do later. I want this guy to be an interesting character, and I need to think about what his voice is going to be, too. So he's kind of an experienced, seasoned tavern keeper. So he's a bit of a rough character, let's say. A little bit of a rough character. And I reserve the right, of course, to change my mind about this characterization. Okay. So he's looking out the window. I actually don't like this characterization very much at all. And parenthetically, friends, his head is really too big. So we'll go with something like that. This generally, I prefer it to be set to median point. Okay, back to draw mode. There's another in the background. Okay, so I'm going to stick with this kind of rough design for the moment. And of course, we're going to need to kind of delineate the texture here. We would assume this is kind of surrounded by rocks or something, right? We'll deal with the background later. It's a brick building. Yeah, the main thing, my sense is that all of this feels too big. So I may have to completely revisit this later. There's something strange about this. It looks like a portal, not a window. Maybe I'm doing the opposite. Maybe I should actually be making this bigger. I don't know. Oh, so as you guys can see, basically the question is, what exactly is confusing me at the moment? Okay, so now from inside, let me think about this. Let's do it this way. We'll put in one transitional bit here. Poof. Poof, poof. So this is going to be the tavern where later Melchizedek is going to have to sort of try to ingratiate himself in, ostensibly to find a job. And because the town is being overrun by soldiers, everything's so busy and crazy that the guy hires him on the spot and says, yeah, go take care of table 7. And when Melchizedek goes over to table 7, he realizes he's been assigned to serve Tobias and Vespar. Fortunately, at this point in the story, those two guys don't know who Melchizedek is. So that works slightly to Mel's advantage. But yeah, that's quite a bit later. Okay, so he turns to his guy, and now we cut to inside the tavern. And what would we see? We would see this. We would see the window there. We'd see the guy here. He turns back here to his assistant dude, who... Golly, this is one of those details that it's tempting to actually have a wider shot where he's like standing on a stool or something, because the window does seem like it's kind of high up. Anyway, we'll not worry about that little detail at the exact moment. Okay, so he's probably got his hand here on the windowsill kind of thing, and he turns back to his underling. And so the rumors are true. The place is overrun with soldiers. We better check the inventory because it's going to be a busy day. That's basically what's going on there. Is this making sense? Nobody's talking much. We got 3 or 4 concurrent viewers and no one is saying a word. Alright, so right hand. I don't know if it makes sense to put his hand in there, but it doesn't hurt. And then this guy, of course, is... Oh yeah, sir, I'm on it. I'm gonna check the... I'll make sure we're stocked and ready to go. Alright, he says with great enthusiasm. This guy looks like a kid in this drawing, but he would actually be... He's just a goofy adult. Okay, script. Okay, so basically, we're going to be going back and forth between these two a couple times. So... this is wrong. We just broke the 180 degree rule. So, scale x -1. At least, it could be a dyslexic moment too. In other words, once I flip it, I may then look at it and go, no, actually it was correct before. Nah, this is right. Okay. So, do Do we have anything we can grab? Maybe here. Oops. Alt-A. Grab this. A. Come on. Alt-A. I keep hitting A when I mean to hit L. Okay, Control-C. Let's go here. Go here. D key. Edit mode. Control-V. Scale this up. Shift X -1. I should say SX -1. Go. Okay. So the only reason I'm duplicating these is because there is a double. There's like two exchanges. He says something, then him, then him, then him. And I don't know that this last shot is required. Yeah, it's going to be a busy day. Actually, it is. So there we go. Okay. Good progress. D key. So we come to Gripson. We pull out to get a sense of this village. It is a small village. It's one of the reasons why they're so overrun with business, because it doesn't take that many soldiers coming into Gripson to make it a busy day. Cabbage guy comes around the corner, stops. Like, who are all these people? Soldiers are entering the town. We're establishing. Vespar is, throwing his weight around and saying, this is what I want you to do. I don't have the line in front of me, so. Yes, sir. Shopkeeper looking out the window. So we're cutting from this. We're assuming we've got continuity. Like mentally, you'll notice that this and this are the same shot. Just closer. Then we flip to inside. Hey, it's exciting. It's going to be a busy day. Okay. There we go. Then what happens, you say? From a distance, the three youngsters survey the insanely busy village. That means this is the next shot. Save our work. And where we're at now would be a conversation. Let's see. The three youngsters survey the insanely busy village. Not only can they see soldiers, but every girl they see is dressed up in Arab style, all covered up. Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, well that's okay. That's okay. We don't need to cover that here. This is a simple cartoon and we have a little latitude. We could throw a girl in the background somewhere. But yes, in this town, so this is actually going to be downstream a bit. But you would see probably something along the lines of a woman that is, I don't even know how those, I forget what they're called. It's crazy because our next door neighbor, she wears one all the time. She apparently, did the full-on conversion to Islam not too long ago. So I'm gonna, I'm really embarrassing myself here. So I'm gonna just draw a head and assume that somehow we'll find a way to make this work. I think something like this is what we're trying to do here. Something like this. It's like a masky thing. What's that called? Does anybody know? What is the outfit they wear that covers them all up completely? Okay, and it might be useful to the thing I would say we're going to have going on here is that probably Tianara would just look out and notice. A girl would notice this. Hey, all the girls here are all covered up, kind of thing. Why is that important? Well, you'll see in a minute. Might be something that winds up getting changed in the script, but at this point, a soldier shows a villager a description of their quarry point. Okay, so this is where probably this guy right here. Actually, see, this is what I mean about the creative flow. It's really interesting to me. We could take these ladies. Yeah, hijab. That's the word I was looking for. Hijab. Thank you. What we could do is the following. Watch this. Okay, so we're going to assume from this shot that the kids are watching and there is a little interaction between them. And then they're going to notice this. Let's go. Let's duplicate this back one. Let's shrink these ladies down a bit. Okay, and then let's just make sure. Okay, so that was a mistake. I put them in the wrong order. Okay, and then what we could do is maybe size them up a little, but then pop them down. Like that. Okay, this should probably come down a little bit more. Okay. Alright. So now I'm going to go. This is kind of a bummer, but I've got to make a change here. So I'm going to try to just keep this flowing. Yeah, that's too big of a change for sure. Size that down. Go. Yeah. Okay, size this down. Go. I'm totally guessing. Yep, that actually came out okay. Okay, so why did I do that? Because here I'm going to go, I'm just going to put in a silhouette. And so basically the soldier is going to, well, let's just keep going. You'll see what I'm talking about. Let me see something. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, what I'm thinking is this should not be a close-up. He interrupts them. There should be a transitional shot of Tianara. I'm just thinking, as a girl, this would bug her. I mean, not only are the girls all forced to dress this way, but, you know, viscerally, she probably doesn't like the idea of a soldier confronting these two young ladies on the street and potentially speaking roughly with them, kind of thing, right? So, like I said, we're spitballing here. Okay, so we have Tianara, and then this shot should be large enough to discern what's going on. So we got these two girls in their hijabs, and then this guy, he's kind of got his hand on his hip, and he's showing them. Oh, come on. He's showing them this. Okay, let's do it this way. Stop. Z. Tab. I have to go really slow right now. I'm moving fast, and I'm starting to make like a litany of mistakes. Okay. Go. Shrink. D. Okay, this is what's bugging me a lot. He's got to be, okay, so what's the known to the unknown? Well, the known is his body. His body's going to be here, something like that. Okay, what else is known? Well, what's known is the hand on the hip. So what's unknown? What's unknown is where the hell the elbow goes, right? Well, now that I know these things, this makes sense now. Okay, so what would he be doing? He's going to be holding this up. And I don't like that. It's close. I'm close to having it right. Maybe it could be like this. Okay, and this is obviously a drawing of TNR. This is a little cheesy in terms of how we're doing this, but then what we would want to do, even though it's a little bit of a violation from a storytelling standpoint, in other words, TNR would not be able to see this. Does that make sense? So we're kind of cheating by cutting to a close-up of the two girls. Okay, that was wrong. That was wrong. Horrifically wrong. Let's find the correct frame. Okay, it appears to me that it's this one, 26. I have no idea if this is going to fly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is horrible. This looks stupid as can be, but it doesn't matter for our purposes. He's using his left hand. Okay, so let's do it this way. Okay, so D key. So we'll just put the hand here with the paper. And we'll just put shaking heads. We don't need to illustrate it here, animate it right now. In other words, nope, no sir, we haven't seen a thing. Okay. I don't know if this belongs in here, but I'm going to put it in here anyway for the moment because I can always change my mind later. I'm just doing it the dumbest way possible, which is by using the sculpting tools. I love the visual storytelling so far. I actually love what I'm coming up with here today. Very much so. It looks cool. And the firmer the plan is, the easier it is when it comes time to animate it, because you can what I most want to do is, you know, there's still a great deal of creativity at the pencil test stage, but once I have a scene blocked in with the pencil test, I'm trying more and more to make it so that it's a very brain dead procedure. It's all mechanical. I'm just doing the grunt work at the ink and paint stage. I'm not creatively coming up with ideas. If I have to pause and get creative at the ink and paint stage, I tend to paint myself into a corner and whatnot. Awkward Penguin, hey, I already shoveled this morning. Where are you at, Awkward Penguin? We had basically 30 degrees and rain a couple days ago, so we've got a good sheet of ice, but it doesn't seem to be, you know, we haven't had any more snow or like melting and refreezing and all this stuff that leads to, like, you know, power going out and stuff like that. Hopefully we won't have. Okay, so I need to look back at the script or I'm going to be flying completely blind here. Okay, yeah, so now we've gotten into the point where the script is really doesn't make sense and it's kind of stupid. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is all dialogue that's on the nose. I'm writing what I intend to convey, not the actual words. Because this is so on the nose, it's ridiculous. How would I recognize her? As you can see in Gripson, our ladies keep themselves covered up. Exactly. This girl is from Newsy, so she doesn't have Gripson clothes, so she should not be hard to spot. Now that seems pretty stupid to me. Stupid dialogue. I don't like it. But it allows me to remember what it was I'm trying to convey. So what's the answer here? And this will be, I'm going to wrap up this session with this. The answer is that these ladies would be walking with a guy. And if they're that religious and it's the whole hijab thing and it's required and blah, 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 it could well be, it does maybe make sense that they maybe can't be out and about unless they have a man with them, which of course, as we all know, is completely insane and ridiculous, but weird stuff happens out there in the real world, doesn't it? All right, so let's grab this, Control C, Control V, scale this up, go, and Control, well, I should do Alt A, Control V, scale this up, go. So that, again, if you're a feminist, I'm totally with you. I find this completely ridiculous, but so they all come up, and unfortunately, actually, speaking of unfortunately, I just bumped into something even worse. Okay, this is a problem. Yep, this is a problem. Hopefully we can solve this quickly. Here's the thing. This, go, poof, all right? And these ladies, go, poof. Why? Well, because the guy that's with them needs to be here. We've got him positioned wrong. Okay, so if we do it that way, then this guy would be to the right. So he would basically be here, and he would be speaking for them. Again, absolutely annoying as can be, but if you guys don't notice, I'm a pretty avowed feminist, actually. Okay, I think that's it. I think we'll wrap it up for now. This is a good session. I frankly accomplished quite a lot, because the next several minutes of show are coming together, and this is going to be a fun sequence because this is the farce. This is the part where Mel winds up having to serve Tobias and Vespar, and at this point I've got enough to keep me going, or keep me busy animation wise, for quite a bit. Number one. Number two, starting from here, this needs to be rewritten anyway, so the script isn't really quite right, and I wouldn't want to keep going creatively on the animation side when the script isn't even certain. That would be just as dumb as trying to do ink and paint when you don't have a proper pencil test, which means you have to be spontaneously drawing the characters perfectly correctly with ink on the fly, which for me, I tend not to do very well at that. If I don't have an underlying guy drawing me, I tend to be I just get sloppy. I start getting really, really sloppy. Northern Canada, okay. Boy, up there in Canada, you guys must be having crazy thoughts and opinions about some of the crap that's going on here in the U.S. And if you do, I really wouldn't blame you. It is a nut. Believe me, from our standpoint down here, this is a nutty time. Just nutty. Some of the stuff Trump's doing. You know, I mean, is it a good thing or a bad thing when a politician or leader, whatever you want to call him, pushes the envelope? You know, stretches the edges of how our system works. You could argue that that's actually a good thing, because it forces us to figure out what we believe, you know, about how we interpret our Constitution and what we allow the president to do, blah, 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 blah. But on balance, I don't particularly love what's been going down. Anyway, we'll leave it at that for the moment. So anyway, okay, we're good. Thanks for hanging out, and as you guys know, there will be more later. Speaking of long